What's up, guys? We're gonna do a quick video. It's not gonna be pretty, but it's gonna let you know what to do to get an install in a new body style Ram. We're gonna start off just pulling off this top tray, getting these two bolts out up on top here, and then this entire panel is gonna pop off. So grab your tools, let's do that. All right, so once you got those two, like I said, it's gonna just pop out. It's gonna be tight. The clips are tough. So get it all unclipped. Be careful not to scratch your dash. And then you're gonna get behind here. We're gonna go ahead and unplug all of the plugs from behind the radio, climate controls and everything. We're gonna pull this bezel out so we can get this factory climate piece out and mount our screen in its place. So let's do that. Okay, so once you get it out of the car, use a nice towel or something because you gotta lay it face down. And then you're gonna follow, you can see these little Torx that are going all the way around that are holding in your factory climate control. And then depending on which factory radio you have, this is gonna look a little different, but the same premise. You wanna get all these screws out so that you can get the radio part and the climate control off of your main bezel. Watch these screws because we're gonna use those to put the other one back in. So don't lose those screws. So let's rock through and do that. Word of advice as we're pulling it out. Notice I had to pull the screen out and there's a couple more of the Torx holding the bezel on. So make sure you get that out first so you don't snap these when you're pulling. Okay, so you can see I got it all out. So here's your bezels missing the climate controls. My panel's here. And so the next thing you're gonna do is find this, should be taped to the back of your radio, and notice what it says to do. You're gonna be cutting either these or these. One of these two you're gonna cut depending on which radio you have. So make sure you watch that. For us, it's gonna be these lower two on each side. So we'll go ahead and get some dikes real quick, snip these off, and then what we'll do is we'll slide this into our factory bezel and then go ahead and mount it using those Torx we took out earlier. All right, so obviously we're gonna have two extra screws depending on which two you didn't use on each side here. But just a word of advice, when you tighten these, you wanna do these hand tight and just snug, because what it'll do is it's gonna give the radio bezel and the factory bezel enough play to kind of just move slightly when you go to snap this in. Because this touch panel is huge, it's basically the whole size of our bezel, and it's pressure sensitive. If like you were to tighten all the way around and then get to here and it's just pressured just enough, you might get a bunch of phantom touches on the screen. So you want to make sure that you don't tighten anything all the way until they're all in there, and then slowly just kind of cross over, kind of like you would a tire, so that you can make sure that it's going in straight. Just a word of advice, otherwise you might end up with some touch screen, some phantom touch screen stuff. But that is installed, so we can pick it up, we can see. I left the blue stuff on just because it keeps that bezel from getting scratched at all while we're working. And now that this is done, we are ready to jump back in the truck. We're gonna talk harnesses, we're gonna talk plugs, and then we'll plug it all in and snap it in and turn it on. All right, so first thing we're gonna talk microphone. So simplest spot is up here on the A-pillar. You just clip it, tuck the wire down and go in. But a lot of people like to not see the microphone. So if you want to do the extra work, the factory mic's right here. And you can, using very carefully, like a small screwdriver, you can see these clips here. If you can push them far enough back, you can get this part down and then slide out. So see, this latch here is gonna go there first and then clip up. Don't pull hard or you'll rip the headliner or break these clips. But that is how you'll get that out, and then you'll just have to fashion a way to get our microphone to stay here, and then you snap it up there and then it'll work all pretty like. All right, so I've got the microphone in, it's back there, can't even tell it's pretty. Ran it down the A-pillar, came across of course, popped up in our dash. So good spot for your nav antenna right here, this little flat spot. And then if you can see back here, there's a nice flat spot here that you can put the Wi-Fi antenna, stick it down there. And then you got those. So let's talk about harnesses. So obviously you have the big main harness. You're gonna wanna make sure whichever version of radio you have, you use either the amp or non-amp plug here into the male side. So what happens is Dodge, for whatever reason, on this main harness here, if it's got no amp, it's got four sets of speaker leads. And then if it has an amp, it takes away 2 sets and then switches the fronts to the rears. No idea. But if you do not make sure that you got the right one, your fade will be off and backwards. So I want to make sure you do that. And if those aren't plugged in, you'll get no audio. And then as well, so this yellow RCA coming off of this main one will not work on your new style RAM. The new style RAM has the camera module down there. I'll show you that in a minute. But then you have these 2 sets of RCAs. It says CD audio left and right and aux audio left and right. So you're going to use your gray auxiliary plug and you're going to choose one or the other. So you can keep the auxiliary from the aux in port, or you can keep the factory CD player. Whichever one you want to keep, you'll plug those RCAs into the gray one, and then that gray guy will plug into the back of our radio. Again, on this main power harness, make sure you plug in the climate control plug. This is the plug that came off of the bezel that we took out. Make sure your CAN box is plugged in. Don't worry, just one side gets plugged in, so don't freak out if you can't find the second side. Note this little guy here. This guy's gonna plug into the bottom of our radio in the back. So when you go and plug it in, make sure that this gets plugged in down at the bottom. It's not with the rest of the plugs, so a lot of times it gets lost. Talk about the FM antenna. So FM antenna is going to be the big fat coax with the white plastic. So use that FM antenna, plug into that. Be careful not to bend the pin in the middle. Your factory USB is going to plug into the adapter on the red plug, same as the one with the CarPlay. And then let's talk this yellow guy's XM. Until we can get XM to approve us, this just is going to hide because we can't do XM right now. Last is the camera module. So the camera is actually the red antenna looking plug that came off the back of the radio. That's going to plug into the box, not the one that's teal that looks like the same color. No, the red one. And then you're going to have your main power plug. You're going to use the RCA marked CVBS, not AHD. So CVBS, and then that's going to plug into your reverse camera input on the black plug, and then you'll be good to go. This yellow plug here has your RCA outputs. This is where your microphone plugs in, and there is going to be in your kit a second one of these that won't have RCAs, but is going to have another end that can plug into your speaker wires here. So this male side, so it's going to have another female side like this. That plug is only if you're experiencing, with the amplified system, if you're experiencing an overpowering of the system where your speakers are crackling. Instead of using your speaker level or low level outputs, you can use a high level output and you'll plug into that instead of these. So that should be all of your plugs. Hopefully I got them all for you. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go grab our bezel. We're gonna plug everything back in the bezel and we're gonna carefully snap it all back in, power it on, and then we'll talk about settings once we do that. All right, once it's all installed, you'll go to Home, Settings, go to System, Settings Guide, and then Car Model AC. And then this is where you're gonna select whether you had RAM low, mid, or high. We had mid. Go here, you wanna make sure your protocol is set. Whoa! Make sure your protocol is set to simple. Car info is 2019, and then you'll hit OK at the bottom. Hit the back arrow by the house button one time, and then save and reboot down at the bottom, and it'll keep your settings.